Another game that I was wrong on, but also knew that it could go this way. North Carolina beats South Carolina 31-17. I think that the way that this went down was kind of unexpected a little bit. I think that the talent level on North Carolina's side was there. And we've talked about North Carolina in terms of we knew their offense was really good. We knew they had depth. We knew they had talent. Defense also had talent. But for the last few years, their talent and experience has kind of underperformed. And that was not the case tonight. I think that, yes, there were some inconsistencies and there's some mistakes that they made, but North Carolina did a lot of really good things. And it was really the defense that stepped up the most. The front seven finished with 16 tackles for loss, 8 sacks, and held South Carolina to -2 yards rushing as a team. That is a tremendous performance from a unit that, like I said, has had talent in the past, but just hasn't stepped up when they needed to. So what do you do to elevate your team? You find ways to capitalize on the talent you have. You find ways to elevate yourself, and you find ways to turn your experience and talent into results. And that's exactly what they did tonight. And that helped an offense that at times looked really good and then also had made mistakes. There were a couple of turnovers that Drake May throws 2 interceptions. And then what does this defense do? They respond with tackles for loss, sacks, they get the ball back to their offense. And if they can do that consistently and the offense finds a way to be consistent as well, then you're looking at a team that is going to return into the ACC championship game and maybe looks a little bit stronger than they did last year. One of the things that we'll look at the offensive side of the ball, British Brooks returns, and which really there's a part of you that could say, well, that doesn't really matter because they have so many running backs, but he had 103 yards rushing. He was clearly the best running back tonight for North Carolina, but there's still plenty of talent behind him. So he's definitely going to have to continue being consistent and finding ways to contribute and be productive because there are guys waiting for their opportunities. But it was really fun to see him return. On the South Carolina side of the things, I think there were good things at times. The really exciting thing was Beamer ball. The onside kick to start the second half was one of the more exciting plays in week one. It was really fun to watch, but it just didn't really turn into anything long term for South Carolina. We'll talk more about their players' performances, but everyone made mistakes, and North Carolina was no exception to that. With Chip Lindsey taking over the offense, we knew that there would be some mental lapses. We knew there would be some confusion, and we saw that early on. We saw penalties, we saw timeouts needed to be taken, just miscommunication. And that's to be expected. But I also think that leads into coming into this year, the concern was what does this offense do? Can the scheme be as explosive as Phil Longo's system? And that's still a question. I think at times you saw, Kobe Pacer was torching South Carolina's defense, and we didn't see Drake May hit him every single time, but you're looking at an offense that should be still explosive. They should be able to move the ball with relative ease. And at times we saw that, and at times we didn't. So this is a group that can still take a step forward because when you look at the numbers, they're not super explosive. I mean, North Carolina averaged 6.2 yards per play. So there's something to be said about how good they can be. And with the talent level they have, it just comes down to Drake May making better decisions and offensive line giving him time to throw and open up running lanes. So I think that this is a really good group still. South Carolina obviously needs to figure things out. The offensive line had a nightmarish day facing this front seven of North Carolina, which is maybe concerning because of the conference you play in. You're going to face a number of talented teams that have disruptive front sevens. So, what do you do to improve after this? Because it's going to be a long season if you're not able to capitalize on your talent because there are guys that played really well and there are guys that struggled. And there wasn't really much of a blend down the middle. There weren't a ton of guys that were down the middle to balance things out. So that's concerning. Now, when you look at the quarterback play, this had the potential to be an explosive battle between Drake May and Spencer Rattler. And at times, both of them made really good plays. I thought they made a number of big throws that were really fun to watch, but in the end, it never turned out to be the exciting matchup that we wanted it to be. I think that part of it was Drake May was still figuring out this new system, made a couple poor decisions, and then Spencer Rattler just never had time to throw. When you get sacked 8 times, it just disrupts all chemistry you might have. But when you look at what the rest of this team did, I don't think that you can really point at Spencer Rattler as a weakness because nobody really else really stepped up outside of maybe like Xavier Legette. I think that his game was really good, but when you have guys like Kamon Rucker for North Carolina in the backfield constantly, it's hard to get anything going. And Kamon Rucker had a huge game. 8 tackles, 5.5 tackles for loss, 2 sacks. I mean, what more could you ask from one player? And he wasn't the only one contributing. He was a guy who definitely led the way, but this was a front seven, a defensive line too, that was absolutely phenomenal. And we're starting to see what North Carolina could be if everything gets pieced together. So again, North Carolina looks really good. South Carolina had some moments, and both teams have things to work on. That's what week one's all for, is just finally get on the field. You know it's not going to be perfect. You know you have things to work on. And North Carolina starts the year with a win. South Carolina starts with a loss. And now it's back to the drawing board. Figure out what you need to do to get better. How can you improve? And in the end, it's still a really fun win for North Carolina. You have to build upon this momentum that you have from this defensive performance and then hope that your offense can make less mistakes as well.